Ladies and gentlemen, welcome yourselves on into the video where today we will be looking at every single map's transport systems in Treyarch Zombies. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Alrighty, so coming in at our number 25 spot, we have got KinoToen. Now before I get into discussing KinoToen, I need to quickly touch base on some of the criteria that each map will be ranked out of for this video. So the first category that we'll be looking at is what I have labeled as the usability category, which is looking at things like how often will you find yourself using the transport system? Is it located in good areas around the map? Is it cost effective? That sort of thing. And that category is worth 10 points. The second category that we'll be looking at is what I've called the uniqueness category, which is obviously looking at things like how unique is it cool, is it memorable. It's more of a subjective sort of category and more that's based on my own opinion. And so that category is only going to be worth 5 points. And then finally we have what I've labeled as the escapability category. So can it help you if you're in a hairy situation? Will it provide a quick getaway? That sort of thing. And so that category is worth 5 points as well. So in total, each map will be ranked out of 20 points. And the only transport systems that will count are ones that offer an alternative to walking. So for example, the plane from Bomb of the Dead will not count because you cannot physically walk to the Golden Gate Bridge in the game, if that makes sense. However, the tank from Origins will count because you can walk from the church area to Gen 2 in-game. So that will be the criteria for the video. Back to KinoToen. Okay, number 25, KinoToen. Now, firstly, you have to give this map a little bit of slack because it is the first map to introduce a transport system in Zombies. But my word, does that not change the fact that this is a shocker. And I mean seriously. First of all, I don't even know what to call this thing. Like, is it a zipline? Is it a gondola? I don't really know. The map calls it a zipline, but to be honest, it's more like a weird combination of the two. And anyway, all this thing does is take you from the center part of the map over to the doctor's quarters. That's it. And I mean, the doctor's quarters are one of the more useless parts of the map. There is no reason to go over there other than maybe if you're getting a perk or if the mystery box decides to head over there. Like, seriously. And might I add, this thing costs 1,500 points to use it. 1,500 points to go literally a stone's throw away from where you started. It is so pointless. Now you might be thinking, well, maybe this thing might give you a quick getaway if needed. Well, first of all, this thing is slow as ever. And second of all, as soon as you activate it, the zombies start absolutely legging it after you to meet you there. So by the time you get there, you've only got about 2 or 3 seconds before you're completely overrun again. And I mean also the fact that there's only a 50-50 chance of it being in the right spot for you. I mean, this thing is an absolute joke. Like, seriously. And the only credit that I give it is that it is the first map to have a transport system. So obviously it gets some unique points than that. But other than that, complete waste of time. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, coming into our number 24 spot, we have got a map which certainly is not used to this spot at all, Origins. Now, before I get into bashing this thing, I will say that the tank is one of the coolest ideas for a mode of transport in Zombies. But other than that, this thing in practicality absolutely blows. So, the tank's job for 500 points is to take you from Gen 6,
the church area to Gen 2. Basically opposite sides of the map, and vice versa. Although, the only problem with this, there's multiple problems, but the main problem with it is the fact that it is ridiculously slow. It's so the fact that even with the mud on Origins, it would still be so much faster to just run there on foot. And detracting from this thing more than that is the fact that the zombies are constantly jumping onto this thing while it's moving. So it's not like it gives you much of a break or a quick getaway. And apart from having to get the lightning staff parts, I just never find myself using it. I've always thought that they missed a trick with this map where they could have had one of the planes that's like flying overhead come down, pick you up, and take you to the other side of the map. But I feel like that would have been such a cool addition to this map, and it would have fit it well. But unfortunately, in the meantime, Origins is just going to have to settle in at the number 24 spot. Okay, coming into our number 23 spot, we have got an interesting one. It's KinoToen. Now, unfortunately, I could not find a way around including this map because technically the teleporter that takes you to Pack-a-Punch will also take you to spawn if you don't do anything at all, even though that's certainly not the purpose of it at all. Seriously, if you are thinking of using this thing solely as a method of getting from the stage to spawn, you have got some serious rethinking to be doing, to be honest, because that's over a minute of waiting for probably about a 5 to 10 second trip on foot. So you might be thinking, how is this thing not last then? Well, firstly, obviously instead of taking you directly to spawn, this thing kind of takes you on a bit of a detour. So firstly, you're in the Pack-a-Punch area for about a minute, and then you also sometimes will get sent to one of 4 different random rooms. I think there's the Samantha's room, the dentist, some dentist sort of room as well, which I think is pretty cool. There's not really anything else like that in any other map, so I believe it definitely earns some unique points to that. And secondly, this thing can act as a great escape method if you're training on the stage, and maybe if you go down or something, instead of having to run through that narrow corridor back to the spawn, you can just take this thing, chill out for a minute, get to spawn, and then go by quick revive, and then work your way back around to the stage. And so for that, I think it at least deserves to be bumped up a couple spots. Alright, into our first Cold War map of this video, we have Firebase Z. Now there is one transport system on this map which will count, and that's the jump pads that are located around the outpost. Now first of all, these jump pads are basically a rip-off of the Wonder Spheres from the Eisendrache, except somehow less cool and less useful. They basically form like an outer ring of the 3 sort of buildings in the outpost area, and so they're not really all that useful. They're kind of out of the way too. The only reason I can ever think of maybe using this thing is if one of those assault waves happens and you need to get to where it's happening quickly or something like that. But other than that, it's just kind of a waste of 500 points. And I guess if you're in a bit of a hairy situation in the buildings too, they can give you a bit of an escape option, but it's certainly not enough to lift it any higher than number 22. Alright, coming into our number 21 spot, we have got Alpha Omega. Now I was pretty bummed, to be honest, when I realised I had to go and play this map again, because I completely forgot about it. Well, I forgot about the transport system in this map. And it turns out it is just as bad as the map itself. So this map has got a teleporter, which already gets no unique points as they are everywhere and throughout zombies. All zombies maps, I should say. But secondly, you have to build this thing, which I wouldn't normally mind if it was actually worth it. But the problem is, once it's built, you can only choose to be teleported between 2 spots on the map. Like, I mean, why? It would be so much better if once it was built, you could like make a web of teleporters around the map and make it sort of like classified or 5, where it can take you to just about anywhere if you wait for like the things to change in it or something, instead of just traveling between 2 spots, which I mean is still kind of handy, I guess, but like at the same time, it's just not, there's no point building this thing. Just save the time trying to find the parts and just run there instead. Like, honestly. Ladies and gentlemen, coming into our number 20 spot, we have got one of the weirder ones on this list. We've got Moon. Now, believe it or not, there are actually 4 different types of transport systems that I have counted for this map. The first 2, which are practically useless, are the astronaut and the QEDs. Because apparently sometimes, even though I haven't experienced it, the QEDs can randomly sometimes transport you to somewhere on the map, kind of like in Anywhere But Here. And then obviously the astronaut will also do the same thing, except it will take away a perk. So I mean, you'd have to be pretty desperate to want to use these things for that purpose. And then the next kind of useless one, not as useless, I don't think, is the jump pads in the biodome. While they are fairly unique, yes, they aren't really all that useful at transporting you anywhere. They're more just kind of annoying. Like sometimes when you just run out the door and they'll just shoot you up in the sky. It's more just kind of a nuisance, really. I mean, they can give you a bit of an escape option, I guess, but then again, like, not really at the same time. And then finally, the 4th one, which I think is actually pretty useful, is the Gersh device, which obviously its primary use is to act like a monkey bomb, sucking up all the zombies. But you can also jump through it and will teleport you somewhere random on the map, like in Anywhere But Here as well, which can be really helpful if you happen to go down somewhere and want to maybe try to get closer to Quick Revive or Jug or something like that. So for that, I have bumped up Moon just a little bit, up to the number 20 spot. Coming into our number 19 spot, we have a map which definitely underachieves for its transport system. We have Dead of the Night. Now, again, the only thing this map features are once again the teleporters, which basically allow you to transport between the mansion, which is kind of like the center area of the map, and the Pack-a-Punch, the mausoleum, and the observatory area. Now, I mean, it's certainly nothing special, but I guess it can save you a decent amount of time, even though I definitely do not find myself going out of my way to use these things that often. And I mean, again, it's just another one of those maps where it's not necessarily overall bad, it's just there's so much missed potential to it. I mean, where's the things like, you know, secret shortcuts around the map, or something to do with the ghosts where they like transport you through the walls or something like that? I don't know, I just think they really underachieved for this map. And unfortunately, it's just going to have to stick here in the number 19 spot. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, coming into our number 18 spot, we have got GRod Crovey. Now, unfortunately for this map, the dragons will not be counting because there is no way to walk between the main area of the map and the Pack-a-Punch area. So we're only going to be looking at that drop down bridge thing that connects the infirmary and the armory. And to be honest, once again, there isn't anything overwhelmingly bad about this thing. It's just that I don't really find myself using it that often. I mean, don't get me wrong, it definitely provides a bit of a shortcut, but at the same time, why pay 500 points when I could just go underneath and it'd be just as fast? I mean, I will say it is fairly unique in the fact there's not really much else like it. And also, I can't lie, it has saved me quite a few times when I've been trapped in that area. So definitely get some bonus points for that. But unfortunately, it's just going to have to settle for the number 18 spot. Okay then, ladies and gentlemen, coming into our number 17 spot, we have Dirise. Now for this map, I have included some of the elevators, as technically for some of them you can get to places that you can also walk between, although you will be saving yourself a lot of time and pain by just walking there instead, because otherwise you're going to be waiting for ages for these things to arrive, and it is just overall not worth it. But the other thing in this map, which I think is definitely worth mentioning, and is what bumps it up to the number 17 spot, is the trample steam, which, first of all, definitely one of the more unique transport systems in zombies, as it's a buildable. You can hold it, walk around with it, and you can basically place it anywhere you like on the map. And the one spot which I think just makes this map so much less painful is when you place it in a spot that takes you from the spawn building over to the power building rooftop, which saves you so much time of having to go all the way down, then across, and then all the way back up through the elevators, when instead you can just place this thing down and hop over to the top instead. But like, as it's really kind of the only significant use for this thing, I don't feel like it deserves to go any higher than the number 17 spot, unfortunately. Alrighty, coming in at our number 16 spot, a map which I think maybe disappoints the most out of any map in zombies for its transport system, we have Voyage of Despair. And once again, I don't know what it is with Treyarch's obsession with teleporters, but they are again a feature on this map. I mean, is it just the default option if they can't think of anything? I mean, I don't know. But anyway, yep, so these teleporters basically act as a method of transport either from one end of the boat to the other, or from sort of the bottom area of the boat up to the top, which is pretty useful considering that these are some pretty hefty distances that these things cover. So it's definitely helpful. And I guess I also like how for the teleporters that take you from one end of the boat to the other, they, instead of just teleporting you straight there, they kind of give you like a cool little flyover of the map. So I think it earns some unique points for that at least. And also the teleporters at the lower level of the map have certainly saved me a couple times as well. But I just think like they could have had, you know, something to do with the lifeboats on the being on the Titanic. Like, you know, maybe you go on one that drops down and takes you all the way around to the other end of the boat instead of teleporting you there. Or maybe something like, instead of teleporting you from the bottom of the ship to the top, you go in one of the funnels and it shoots you up and onto the top deck or something like that. So yeah, once again, a lot of missed possibilities for this map. So it's just going to have to settle in for number 16. Alrighty, coming into our number 15 spot, we have 5. Now, but 5 teleporters are the only things that will count here, as I kind of count the elevators as basically being stairways between the two levels. Anyway, now once again, teleporters, so you know, no unique points for that. But in terms of practicality, these are pretty good alternatives to using the elevators. I mean, they're free, they teleport you there instant, and they also act as a pretty good means of escape too, especially on the lower levels of the map. But my only issue with these is that they are completely random in terms of where they take you, which means more often than not you don't end up where you actually want to, and you may not even leave the area entirely either, which can be pretty frustrating and also turn out to be not helpful if you're in a bit of trouble. And so because of this randomness factor, even though overall I think they are pretty good, 5 doesn't find itself any higher on the list, even though these things can be pretty helpful on their day. Okay everyone, and at our number 14 spot we have got Blood of the Dead. Now with Blood of the Dead, obviously we retain the gondola that featured in Mob of the Dead, but we also have the new underground tunnels. So first of all, the underground tunnels, which by the way remind me a lot of the Zetsubo sewers, are certainly a welcome addition to the map. There's 2 of them. The first one that I want to cover is the one that takes you from the new industries area to the cafeteria. Absolutely no complaints with this one. I find myself using it a lot. It's super helpful, saves you having to go over the catwalk and through the courtyard area. So big thumbs up for that one. The second one, however, is the one that takes you from the warden's house to the showers and back. Now, it's certainly like a route that you will find yourself covering pretty often in this map, but it's just unfortunate that where these things are located are kind of awkward spots and ones that you don't find yourself in too often. So overall, it's kind of like a 50-50 with these things. One of them's really good, one of them's just kind of meh. And secondly, with this map, obviously the gondola. Now, because of the way that this map flows and the layout of it, I don't think this thing really lives up to its Mob of the Dead counterpart. Even though there's absolutely no changes being made to it, I just don't find myself using it as often. I mean, I'd rather just run down through the map instead of taking this thing. And unfortunately, that is not the only problem with this thing. Check this out. Alrighty, coming in at smack bang in the middle of our list, we have got Zetsubo no Shima. And with this map, we have 2 fairly unique teleporters. We have the zipline and we have the sewers. Firstly, the sewers, which connect the green water area at Power B with the KT4 area. I think these are pretty useful, especially since I find myself often going between the bunker and the skull area on this map, which these things sort of, I guess, take you halfway between. They're pretty helpful, and I find myself using them a fair bit. I just kind of wish there was more of them, to be honest. And secondly, on this map, we have the zipline, which I think is the lesser useful of the 2 on this map. And this is mainly because of the specific locations it connects, being the an upper corner of the power A station and the outer area of the power room and the bunker. Now, first of all, the outer area of the bunker especially is just not really used very often. I mean, apart from obviously doing the skull, and if you're collecting the cog for the Easter egg, there's no reason to head here at all. And even though you do find yourself going to the power A area a lot, the spot where the zipline is located in is just such an out of the way spot and kind of an awkward spot to get to that I just forget that it's even there most of the time. So overall, we've got one fairly useful one kind of not so useful one. I think that averages out at about middle of the list for Zixabo. Alrighty, and at our number 12 spot we have Dirise. Now obviously with this map we once again have teleporters, and whilst they are a common feature in zombies, I feel like this map deserves some unique points since it was the first one to introduce the teleporters. Now, first of all, Dirise's layout basically consists of a spawn pack-a-punch area and then 3 different areas that branch out from spawn. And what the teleporters basically do is connect these 3 areas with the spawn / pack-a-punch area. Which in theory is great, as it means that these things basically offer you a quick way to get back to spawn or pack-a-punch if you want it, basically connecting the map. But the main issue that I have with these things is the cost. 1500 points to use these things means that using them early on in the game whilst setting up is not really an option, because it's just going to put too hefty of a dent in your savings. And then once you're finally set up, you don't really need to use them anymore. And so oftentimes I just find that I forget that these things even exist, even though they can be pretty helpful. Especially if you're training, or maybe if you're camping up on the catwalk and get overrun, these things can give you a pretty good getaway and save and give you a bit of breathing space back at spawn. And not to mention the power up that will normally come with it. And so overall, I think it is a pretty solid system. It just gets held back a little bit by the cost of it. Coming in at our number 11 spot, we have got Classified. Now, obviously, Classified's transport system basically just consists of the same teleporters as 5, except there's more of them since the map is bigger. So clearly, minimal points for uniqueness. However, in terms of use, these things certainly are an improvement from 5. And what I'm talking about when I mean that is the fact that now these things will show you which floor they will take you to before you enter them. They'll sort of display it in the teleporter where they're going to take you, which is so helpful. Such a much needed improvement from 5. And although in terms of where they take you on that specific floor is still random, I don't really mind that because the floors themselves are not that big, and it kind of makes things interesting in a good way. But I will say though, the number of times when I've gone to enter these things and the floor that's going to take me to changes the second I jump into it, it's a little bit annoying, but I mean, I guess not everything can be perfect. So overall, Classified, same teleporters as 5, except with a much needed improvement. Cracking into our number 10 spot, we have Mob of the Dead, and specifically the Gondola. Yeah, unfortunately for this list, the plane will not count, as there's obviously no way of getting to the bridge other than taking it. So the only thing we're going to be looking at is the Gondola. But anyway, I think this thing fits in perfectly with the flow of Mob of the Dead. I mean, every single game of Mob of the Dead that I play involves doing the afterlife in the cell block areas, feeding the dogs in the infirmary and the cell block, and then taking the gondola down to the docks. Which is perfect because that means that instead of spending thousands of points of navigating your way down through the narrow and dodgy passageways all the way down through the map to the docks, you can just hop on this thing for 750 points and you're there. I mean, not to mention how cool it is getting to see a view of Alcatraz as you're going down.
I always appreciate being able to see a map from a different perspective, especially a setting like Mob of the Dead. I would also like to say that the gondola has certainly saved me a few times whenever I've been cornered down in the docks area, but sometimes there is a good chance that it's not in the location that you want to be, so having to call it can be a bit of a pain, but it's nothing too bad. And as this thing is really the only thing on Mob of the Dead, I can't really justify putting it any higher than the number 10 spot.
Coming in at our number 9 spot, we have got the Eisendrache. Now, for the Eisendrache, we have got 2 modes of transport. The first one we'll be looking at is the Wonder Spheres. And we are only going to be counting the 2 Wonder Spheres that are located up at the castle area, and not the 2 that take you between the rocket area and the castle area, if that makes sense. So for starters, Wonder Spheres, pretty unique idea. I mean, the idea of getting launched across the map has always been pretty cool to me, and it is unlike really anything we'd ever seen before in zombies. And I'll always like and appreciate being able to see the map from a different perspective as well. So definitely some unique points to that. And in terms of practicality, they are in pretty useful spots and aren't too far out of the way, and can certainly be helpful, especially if you're doing the whiff step of the Easter egg and need to get to the other side of the map fast. However, the one thing about them though is that the distances they cover aren't all that large. And what I mean by that is that running or just chain sliding to where you want to go is sometimes just as fast, if not almost as fast as taking these things anyway. So you may as well just save yourself the 500 points and just do that instead. And I think they would have been better if maybe they connected sort of like the bow area of the map with the other side of the map instead of just like the 2 top sections. I think that would have made them a lot more useful. But the second thing that I would like to cover for this map is that 115 thing that's sort of underground that launches you up into the courtyard. And I have absolutely no complaints with this thing. It's free, it's quick, I use it all the time, it's super helpful, and it fits perfectly into the map, and is what pushes the Eisendrache all the way up to number 9. Alright, and at our number 8 spot, and the end of the road as far as Black Ops 4 is concerned, we have got KinoToen. Now, KinoToen's transport system is basically the same as Call of the Dead's with zip lines and flingers. So already you can't go wrong with that, except there's more of them. And you can also travel up the zip lines as some of the zip lines too, instead of just being able to go down them, which is obviously a big thumbs up from me. So you might be wondering, obviously, why is it lower than Call of the Dead if they've added all these things? And well, first of all, they aren't particularly unique, obviously, as they had appeared in a previous map in Call of the Dead. And second of all, the layout of KinoToen is a little bit different to Call of the Dead. and the fact that it doesn't have the same features of Call of Duty where you're sort of blocked off from some areas as you keep moving forward and are forced to sort of go the long way around, which is what I thought made the zip lines and flingers really useful in Call of Duty. And so because of that, I don't find myself needing to use them as often as I do in Call of the Dead. But nonetheless, they are still definitely useful and are much needed for the map. Coming into our number 7 spot and the highest for Cold War, we have got KinoToen. Now, unfortunately, the zip lines on this map will not count. However, what we will be looking at is the rappel system on this map. Now, the rappel system is essentially just a vertical zip line, which I believe is implemented into this map perfectly, especially since this map involves a lot of going through the different levels, whether it's the underground or the rooftops, and these things don't require any parts to use. They are free, apart from having to turn on the power, obviously, which is definitely a good thing. And yeah, I mean, obviously they're fairly unique. I mean, we haven't seen anything like that before in zombies. And yeah, I don't really have too much else to say about them other than the fact that they're just an all-around solid system and a welcome addition to the map for sure. Alrighty, so coming in at our number 6 spot, we have a map which certainly is not used to being in this area on the list. We have Transit. Now, first of all, Transit being the size that it is kind of means that any transport system, no matter how flawed it is, will be pretty useful. And in Transit's case, we've got 2 pretty unique transport systems. So the first one I want to talk about is the bus, which obviously is the main method of transportation around the map. And to be honest, it can be pretty helpful. I mean, if it's there ready for you, it can save you the trouble of having to run through basically hell to get to where you want to go. However, the problems with their bus, and I mean there are a few of them to be fair, but the main one I would say is that more often than not, you're going to be standing around waiting for the bus to come, and which could take a fair bit of time, to the point where you may as well just take the plunge and run through the fog, through the denizens, all of it, just to save yourself the time of having to wait. And the other issue I have as well with the bus is that if you're taking it, for example, during the middle of the round, there's a good chance that it could get completely swarmed by zombies. I mean, there's really not much to protect you apart from a few boarded up barriers, but I mean, zombies are going to have absolutely no trouble getting through that. And I think the bus is actually kind of overshadowed by the second mode of transport in this map, which is the lampposts. And I think the lampposts are one of the few resounding positives about Transit, as these things are so helpful. And while, I mean, they are pretty random in terms of where they take you, if you end up somewhere you don't want to be, you can quite easily just get another denizen, create another portal, hop in, and keep doing that over and over until you get to where you want to go. And because they're instant as well, they save so much time having to run through the fog or wait for the bus, catch the bus. And I think these alone make Transit a much less painful experience than what it could be. And because of that, I believe that these things bump Transit up to the number 6 spot. Cracking into our number 5 spot, ladies and gentlemen, we have Buried. Now, before I get into it, some of you might not agree with this pick, and you'll see why in a minute. So in Buried, there are 2 transport systems. The first one that I want to talk about is the Trample Steam, which obviously we have seen before in Dirise. And to be honest, in this map, it certainly does not live up to its name in the way that it does in Dirise. I mean, there is virtually no point in assembling this thing whatsoever. It's not going to give you that much help at all. And to be honest, I don't even know why it's in the map in the first place. However, the second transport system I want to talk about is something called the Paralyzer. And this is what I thought might cause a little bit of controversy as to whether or not it counts or not. So, the Paralyzer, possibly one of the most unique transport systems on this map, as it is a weapon that you obtain from the mystery box and obviously can hold and use. Its primary use, I would say, is for killing the zombies, but its secondary use basically allows you to fly around the map just about wherever you want to, which is so helpful considering that there is a lot of verticality involved in this map with all the buildings around and all the barriers that are in your way most of the time. So having this thing is honestly a godsend sometimes, because it means that you can now access any of the areas that you want to in an instant, or fly over any of the barriers that are in your way on the map. And I think it's especially helpful in the maze, where basically it allows you to get a view of the maze. You can see where you've got to go, fly over the barriers. It's so helpful. And not to mention as well that if you're ever in a sketchy situation, you can just pull this bad boy out, fly away, and live to fight another day. So, yeah, buried number 5. Coming into our 4th spot, we have got Ascension. Now, technically, this map has got 2 transport systems with the Lunar Landers and the GRod device. And the first one I want to cover is the Lunar Landers. So, Lunar Landers. Very, very unique idea. I mean, you basically get to fly around the map on mini rocket ships. Like, who doesn't want to do that? And like I said, I always love being able to see the map from a different perspective. So already, big thumbs up for me in terms of that. But secondly, they are located in great spots around the map. And especially the ones that are near Stamina and PhD. Where if you're training around there and you find yourself in a bit of trouble or need to get back to spawn quickly because of the monkeys, just hop on these things. They'll give you a bit of a break from the zombies and you'll be sweet. And I also think they're just integrated into the map really well too. Like, you've got to use them to open up Pack-a-Punch and launch the rocket. And they're a part of the Easter egg too. So overall, just a perfect addition for this map. And obviously the other transport option, which is the GRod device, which isn't that useful for getting around the map because it's random. But like I said, with Moon, if you ever find yourself in a bit of a dodgy situation, just throw this thing, hop through it, and you'll be okay. So overall, Ascension, solid transport system, and that's what earns it the number 4 spot. Coming into our number 3 spot, we have got Shadows of Evil. Now, first of all, Shadows of Evil as well has got 2 modes of transport, which is the tram and the teleporters. So talking about the tram first, it does deserve a bit of credit because there isn't really anything else like it in Zombies. And I mean, getting taken on a scenic tour of the map is always pretty cool. But the problem is that I just don't find myself using it that often, really, at all. And I guess that's kind of because where it's located in each location is just kind of too far out the way. And it is a little bit slow as well, unfortunately. Especially when you've got the real star of Shadows of Evil, which more than make up for it are the teleporters. So, the teleporters being located in each of the 3 districts and all connecting to the underground passage means that they offer you a quick way through the underground to get to other districts of the map instead of having to walk all the way around through the center sort of area to get to where you want to go. And essentially what they do by doing that is make Shadows of Evil feel like a much smaller map than what it actually is, which I think is exactly what you want from a transport system. And so overall, this is what secures Shadows the number 3 spot. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, coming into our number 2 spot, we have got Call of the Dead. And this map is absolutely the epitome of a great zombies map layout. The way this map kind of forces you to take the long way around by blocking off certain areas behind you as you keep moving forward makes the fast travel systems on this map essential. And man, do they deliver. First of all, the zip lines and the flingers are 2 of the most memorable and unique transport systems in zombies. I mean, the idea of either flying across the map on a zip line or getting launched by the flinger never fails to disappoint. But most importantly, they are in great spots. And whether it's the zip line from the lighthouse to the boat or the flinger from power to the lighthouse, they are so crucial to the flow of the map. And not to mention, the zip lines can provide a great getaway if need be. The only thing I would say is that I wish there was something that would take you maybe back to the lighthouse or back to spawn from the far end of the boat, because it kind of needs it. But even still, Call of the Dead, great layout, great transport system, and ultimately it secures its place at number 2. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, coming in at our number 1 spot. You might not have predicted it, but it is Shang Rea. Now initially I was actually going to put Call of the Dead as the number 1 spot, but after replaying this map I have to say it's the best. I mean, Shang Rea offers 3 different and very unique fast travel systems, and the first 2 I want to talk about is the rail car and the water slide, which obviously are different in terms of how they look and what they do, but they both serve the same purpose in that they will basically take you from one side of the map to the other, which is always incredibly helpful. Not to mention that the water slide is free and the rail car only costs about 250 points, so they are not really going to do any damage to your bank account at all. So big thumbs up there. And then secondly, on this map we have the sort of geyser things, which will either shoot you above ground from underground or allow you to fall through them back underneath, which saves a ton of time of having to obviously navigate and run around the map when you just use these things and instantly you're right up top. And furthermore, just to add to things, the minecart and water slide are also located in perfect spots for quick getaways, and they just integrate into this map's design so well. The only, if I had to give a minor critique to anything, I would say that you can potentially die of full damage from falling through the geysers if you've been hit a couple times. Although it is a tiny critique to say the least, and definitely an avoidable one. And certainly does not detract enough from just how good the transport system on Shang Rea is. And so ultimately, Shang Rea amazing transport system, unique, helpful, cheap, exactly what you want, and that's what deserves it of the #1 spot. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning into my first video. Obviously, since it's my first, there are going to be quite a lot of flaws and things that I need to improve on. So if you would like to leave a comment on what you think I could improve on or what I did well, that would certainly be much appreciated. But otherwise, if you like the content and want to see more, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. The elevators. Zetsubou sewers. A lot of now for the 5 teleporters. Oh my god, I've done it. Eisendrache. We are only counting. Oh, whoops. Trying to see the 3 areas. The spawn area. Oh my god, random. But I mean, I don't really have a problem with that. I think it adds